So I just wanted to share with you how I did this painting step by step. I did it for a workshop. It's like a good example of how you can tackle an oil painting, especially if it's your first oil painting. So I just thought I would share with you the process video and then break down like the steps that I go through.
So I always start my paintings with a simple underdrawing. There are lots of methods you can use to get an accurate drawing. For example, a transfer or a grid method. But the best thing is not to get bogged down with detail, but think of it like an accurate map of the overall shapes. The next stage is what I like to call the oil sketch. I diluted burnt umber with solvent. This creates a fast drying thin wash and combines two traditional painting techniques into one. It serves as a toned ground because it's a mid-tone layer that helps you see values better, as well as an underpainting. It's important to keep it thin so you don't muddy the next layer of paint. For the workshop, I wanted to keep the palette very limited and harmonious, so we just used cyan, yellow, magenta, white, and brown. We mix black using blue and brown, and a trick to earthy greens is adding a bit of orange into them. Which brings me to the next stage, which I like to call the modeling stage. This stage is about not being afraid to just put paint down on the surface. I tend not to use a lot of medium at this stage, but you can add a touch of solvent and or medium to create the consistency that you want. This painting was for a workshop demo, so I divided the canvas so the group could see the different stages and painted it all at once, wet on wet, just like we would in the workshop. You can see I took a bit of video here of some of the demos I did in the workshop. I actually called this the ugly stage because modeling is less about the overall look and polish of the painting and more about working from general to specific and honing in on the overall form and value. One of the top frustrations for new oil painters is often muddy colors. One trick to avoid this is always making changes to your painting with new brush strokes and new paint, rather than overworking the paint already on the canvas. This brings us to our fourth stage, which I like to call the finishing stage. I add more oil medium into my paint than the previous layer, making the colors a bit more translucent and luminescent, and I go through and refine any details or bring a bit more color to certain areas. Because the painting was mostly done using a wet on wet technique, I didn't want to overdo this stage or lose any of the immediacy of the painting. I did some of those other finishing details like painting the edges or adding my signature, and did a bit more work on the rose petals. By using the extra oil medium to create a more translucent layer, you can breathe more life and interest into areas like the rose petal, which have a lot of subtle reflected light. Like I said, I wanted to keep the immediacy of the painting and just finish it off from where it got to with the demo. But as long as you follow the fat over lean oil painting rule, you can add as many layers to an oil painting as you want.